Here's a surprising truth about intelligence. The more intelligent you are, the more wrong you can be. Not because intelligent people are dumb, but because our brains are not designed to understand the world, but rather to help us survive in it. This difference between what we are capable of and what we are designed for is the subject of one of the most interesting books I've ever read. It's called This Will Make You Smarter, and it is the combined effort of over 1,500 of the world's leading scientists, including Daniel Kahneman, Richard Dawkins, and Steven Pinker, who all answered the question, what is one idea that would make everyone smarter? I'm going to share 4 ideas with you that came out of this book that will change the way you think about the world. Your gut feelings can be misleading, and sometimes events that seem random can actually be related, but understanding why can be the difference between being right or wrong. One of the ideas in the book is called the focusing illusion, a cognitive bias first described by psychologist Daniel Kahneman. The focusing illusion causes us to overestimate the relevance of whatever we are currently thinking about. If I just moved to this city, I would be so much happier. This is an example of the focusing illusion because when you moved to the city, you only thought about how nice it was, but you didn't take into account how that single factor would influence your life. In reality, the city has little to do with your happiness, but your brain made it seem like it was the most important thing in your life at that moment. The focusing illusion is everywhere. Anytime you are thinking about something, that something is having a much bigger influence on you than it actually should. Let me give you another example. Have you ever wondered whether it's safer to drive or fly? Logically, you should know that flying is much safer, but whenever there is a plane crash on the news, it seems much more dangerous than driving. This is the focusing illusion again, but this time in the form of anecdotal evidence. The book calls this type of evidence anecdotalism. A single anecdote can have much more power over us than any other type of information, and it can trick us into believing things that aren't true at all. It's much easier to remember a sad story than it is to remember a statistic. Your brain isn't designed to make you think about facts and figures, but rather to make you remember stories and emotions. Now that you know about anecdotal evidence, you can use that knowledge the next time you see it being used to manipulate you. For example, drowning rates increase during the summer, as well as ice cream sales. Now, obviously, eating ice cream doesn't make you more likely to drown, but both are caused by the same factor, the warm weather. This is much easier to see in this example than it is in real life, where there is usually one factor that influences 2 other factors. This is a case of correlation not implying causation, and it's one of the most common logical fallacies out there. We are usually taught from a young age to avoid failure, but futurist Kevin Kelly has an idea that he thinks we should actually try to fail more often. The reason for this is that almost all innovations are the result of trial and error. By trying something and then failing, we are able to find out what doesn't work, and by process of elimination, figure out what does work. Without the failures, there would be no successes. The goal of trial and error is not to make sure that you succeed the first time, but rather to make sure that you try enough times to find the right answer. And that's the thing about trial and error. There's no guarantee that you will find the right answer, but there is a guarantee that you won't if you don't try. Now let's put all of these ideas together. The common theme that unites them all is that our brains use shortcuts to make thinking easier, but these shortcuts can cause us to think about things incorrectly. The best way to combat this is to be aware of when our brains are misleading us. The best way to do this is to ask 3 questions. First, ask yourself if what you are thinking is a story or a statistic. Second, ask yourself if it's a case of correlation implying causation. And finally, ask yourself if you are sure about what you think you know. That is, in essence, the whole book summed up in one sentence. If you've liked what you've heard so far, I encourage you to follow this channel because every week I review a book that will change the way you think about the world.